All right, guys, this is the this portion right here. If you are doing, we have two different projects going on at the same time for the rattle project. One is the mini rattle heads, okay? And that's that one right there. I started that one. Now I'm letting that one dry some. I'm going to work on my animal. If you remember from my the previous the video, I am going to actually create a horse. So I've got my little body right here. Does it look exactly the same? No, it does not. So I need to go through and I'm going to take a little bit of hydration on my fingers, which is water, and I'm going to come through and I'm just going to gently massage some of this water into this project to get this to do a little bit more of what I want it to do. Because this one right here this is my firm leather. It's probably firm leather hard. But luckily, I can actually still work with this. Okay, so I'm already starting to see the bend here? I've got that little bend right there. That's what I want for the back of my horse's neck. Okay, now, when you are creating an animal, you are going to be adding additional pieces on. Like you're adding additional pieces on for the head too, but it's not going to be quite the same. For an animal, you actually are going to have to well, you're going to add some thicker pieces on. Okay, so you can't actually go through and say, I'm going to add this big old, here's my extra clay, because I like my, there we go. I took half of my clay, so I've got half of it left. So if you're doing an animal, make sure you've got, you divide that baby in half. Okay, so I want to do my horse, tiny little legs, and I'm going to do a horse's head. Okay, so I'm going to break it into sections. So if I look right here, I'm going to break it into sections. I'm going to create this section right here. Okay, next. And then I'll add, my other bits and pieces on. But I need to make sure that I get that. Now, so what I would suggest is come through and say, all right, so I've got this, I'm on the clay right here. I want it to fit on. Okay. So I'm going to come through and I'm going to start squishing and I'm going to try to adjust it. And I'm going to say, I'm going to take this much clay right here for my my head. Okay, and sometimes it's totally a gamble, guys. Okay, I'm going to come through and I want it to have kind of a taper on it, so I've got like this, and then I'm going to just come through. I'm going to smooth it up some because this clay, there we go, flatten that down a little bit. This is really just a playing game, guys. Those of you that are willing to just sit there and play with the clay and adjust and stuff, you're going to do better than those of you that aren't willing to do that. Okay, that's just how it goes. Okay, so I've got my back here, I've got my head right here. Okay, see right there? Okay, but I got all this clay right here. Well, what you need to do is, what do you need to do? You need to carve this out. Okay, so what can you use to carve this out? You can use your what is that called? Your not toothpick, paper clip. You have your paper clip. Make sure you have your paper clip. That would work well for that. If you have any kind of a loop tool, anything that loops, that will work just fine too. Hold on, I'll pause for a second. Okay, so I have a paper clip. I'm going to come through and I'm going to scoop out clay. All right. If you are doing that, you definitely need to take your time. Okay. You need to gauge and say, ooh, okay, how thin is that? How thin is that? That's okay. Remember, we want it, a pinky to a finger. We don't want it, like if you attach the whole thing and you don't carve it out, it blows up. Okay. There's a strong possibility that it's going to blow up. I'm going to use my tool because, well, I have my tools and I'm trying to make a quick video. So I'm just going to keep going through here and I'm going to adjust. I'm going to adjust it to where it is just fine. Okay, take that off. Got little clay pieces flying all over the place. All right, so I have a neck here. You look at my design. I'm going to try to get through this part up here on, and then I'll add on the other bit. Okay, I'm going to come through here. I'm going to jam my finger up there to get it a little bit skinnier, because it's, you get a little nervous thinking you might end up popping the whole thing out. So I've got a nice hole created there. All right, So I'm going to go like this and say, how does that look? I think I'm going to actually go, ooh, okay. So like I had it on like this initially, and I thought it looks too much like a giraffe. So I'm going to flip it this way, and oh, all of a sudden, I think that's going to work. Okay, so what I want to do is I'm going to shape it to where it's going to cap on a little bit better. Now, the nice thing is, and for some reason, students never think to do this, we actually can carve this up some and adjust it in the end. Okay, so I'm going to go like this. I'm going to score all over. I'm going to score like way more than what I think it needs to be scored, because the score marks just act as a great barrier for blowing up. You just do that. And when you smooth clay over top of the scored area, as long as there's hydration on it, you're not going to get those air bubbles. Okay, so I've got this scored. Wish you could see that better. Does it autofocus? No, it doesn't. It's pretty garbage. Okay, well, it is what it is. All right, so I've got that. And then I have to come through here. If you want your pieces, you only score the pieces that you want to stay attached. So that means you score everything. If you don't score it, it doesn't stay attached. It blows off. It destroys someone else's project. Your project is ruined and all sadness ensues. Okay, so I've got my water right here. I come through. I put my water on here. Okay. And guys, this is a whole building process. You know, I mean, it really, this, you know, is going to take you, this takes you a few days, literally, because, you know, when as you're working on it, like the last one that I just did, my little head there, it was getting too dry. So I had to stop, not too dry, too wet. I had to stop. Okay. So I've got my head on here. Okay. I'm going to come through and I'm going to put some water on that. I'm going to smooth it into place. Okay. Smooth it into place. And I will tell you, so there are times that you start making something and you're like, yep, that was supposed to be a horse. Nope, it doesn't look like a horse in the end. It looks like something completely different. That happens a lot in clay class, guys, because, well, for some reason, you know, like the angle is off or whatnot, and it ends up looking like something entirely different. Go with it, guys. I don't care. You know, maybe it ends up looking more like a bird. Like right now, I'm feeling it. He looks like kind of like a bird almost, but I'm going to stick with my horse, darn it. Okay, so I've got that started right there. Okay. All right, so I've got my horse. It might have a little bit too much of a neck. I feel like it's a little bit too much of a neck, but we'll see. Okay, so I've got that right there. All right, and then I'm going to start massaging this down just a little bit because I do think that his neck might be a little bit too long. So I'm just going to go like this and see, I'm just gently making this move just a tiny bit. And then I can add a tiny little bit of clay on the end for his snout, okay, which works great. All right, so I've got that right there. And I'm continuing to play. I'm adjusting, making it work, okay. It's not a one and done thing. Clay is not a one and done. Okay. My horse is definitely going to be maybe a little bit chubbier because, well, it's going to. Just, I feel it. Okay. So we've got that right there. Now we need little legs. Now, there are many times that I have students who go through and they create this awesome leg, a singular awesome leg. And then they can't replicate that singular awesome leg because why? They went and attached it to their little critter. Okay. Don't attach anything until you have both parts made. Okay. So I have his neck on there. Probably should have done his legs first. That might have been a little bit smarter. I wasn't thinking. I was kind of hurrying. Okay. So I've got a nice square-ish piece of clay. I'm going to divide it in half. Okay. And then I'm going to divide it in half again. Okay. By doing that, I have 4 relatively equal pieces of clay that I'm going to use for my horse's legs. Okay. These would look stupid if I attached them like that. I don't want them to attach like that. I want them to look a little bit more like that. So I'm going to come through and I'm going to adjust. Okay. The bottom, the part that's down on the mat here, that is going to be the part that's attached to the body. So I'm just going to take my 2 little pieces and I'm going to do this right here. I'm just trying to, you know, blend it up, make it look, you know, somewhat similar. Okay. So I'm going to just do that. I want him to be thicker where he attaches to the actual the body, because if it's really skinny where it attaches to the body, you have a greater chance of breakage. And we really don't want it to break, okay? So you've got to make sure that anything that you attach, like ears and stuff like that, everything should be chubby. All of the bits and pieces of your project should be relatively chubby, okay? And if they're not, you might just end up broken. And well, that really, you know, to spend all of that time working on your project and to have it break, that's sadness. So make sure that you are being extra careful when you are creating your project. Okay, so I've got a couple of in-process legs. Okay, now if your project or your clay is too soft and you try to put this little chubby guy with his little legs on there, what happens is he just squashes his legs. Okay, so the legs need to dry up some, and I'm probably going to work on that prior to attaching. So I will pause. I'm going to use a hair dryer on it to get them to dry out. Now, I've had students ask me, well, Mrs. Reamer, I don't know how long I need to dry my clay with a hair dryer. Guys, I don't either. I'm not at your house. I have no clue. It is really a use your best judgment, you know, use your best judgment. That's the best thing that I can say to you. Okay. Best judgment. Okay. All right. I'll be back. Okay. So I have gone through and I have dried up my legs just a tiny bit. Okay. Because they were really, really, really squishy. Okay. So now what I need to do is I need to attach my lovely little legs. Okay. So I want him to be almost like he's running, I think, just a tiny bit. So I'm going to have the one leg like this. I'm going to do the other legs in the front kind of like this. Okay, so that's how I'm going to do things. So what I need to do is, obviously, I have to score, right? So I'm going to come through and I'm going to score. If you've learned nothing from this video, scoring is of vital importance. Okay, so I'm going to score, and I'm going to score these things right here, the little things meaning the legs. They're nice and firm now. They're not too terribly firm, but they're firm enough. Make sure you are, you know, getting them scored really good. Okay. Going back and forth, creating lots of ridges that create all of that great slip stuff. Okay, so remember, you got to water and you got to water. Okay. Water a little bit better. Okay, and I'm going to take my one leg, I'm going to put my one on. And this is not perfect right now, not at all. My other front leg, make sure I get my front legs and not my back legs. And I'm going to attach that one right there as well. Okay, so I'm going to pause the video because I don't want this video to be 50 minutes long. And then I'm going to attach my legs. So I'm going to pause. Pause. All right, so I attached my 4 legs. Do they look perfect? Not by any stretch of the imagination. But they are attached. I'm going to smooth them up some. I'm going to maneuver them around just a little bit to where I'm like, okay, that looks pretty good. So we've got like there, we've got the front view, we've got this side view. I'm not going to lie, I'm not loving this leg, but it's okay. I just need to squash it and work with it a little bit more. Now, I will tell you, be full honest with you, as I was working on this, I kept looking at it thinking, it's a seal. It's a seal. It looks just like a seal. Like I could have easily turned this into a seal in like 2 seconds and been like, yep, it was always meant to be a seal. But then I said, no, I'm going to actually do the horse like I said I was going to. But if by chance you start working on your project and you're like, no, man, I'm telling you, that's a seal. I could have easily put on 2 little flippers and added a little tail and he would have been a perfect little horse. Okay. I mean, not a horse, a seal. All right. So I'm going to create a snout for him now too. So I'm going to grab a piece of clay here and cut this off right here. And I'm going to work on smooshing that into the shape that I need it to be. Okay. So I've got this right here and I'm going to say, okay, we've got that. Needs to be about yay big. Okay. And I already made one. I'm going to put this right here. Okay. It's not really going to look like, it still looks like it totally still looks like a seal's head. But once I add the other, or it could be a polar bear too, maybe. I don't know. Anyway, so I'm going on with the whole horse thing. Okay, so I've got this right here. I'm going to use a different tool to squish, you know, score his face. So you guys score right here. Okay, just score all that, and then we'll put that on. Okay, so I would say here. Once we get this attached, that's when we start really needing to go through and adjusting the overall body to where it looks like we want it to look. I'm going to come through and work on sculpting the head and everything, doing all sorts of stuff like that. So I'm going to do that next, but I'm going to get this nose attached first. Okay, so I have attached my face. I still think he looks a little bit like a dinosaur maybe now. That's okay. I'm still working on him. All right, so I'm going to gently come through and I'm going to adjust to get the angle that I want to have, okay? And that is just playing with your clay sometimes, okay? So I'm literally going through and going to adjust and keep adjusting, okay? Maybe his neck is too long. I think his neck is too long. I really feel like his neck is too long. So you know what I'm going to do? Because I am not in love with my horse. I mean, I'm in love with the idea of the horse. I'm going to decapitate him. I'll just cut his head right off. It's totally fine. Okay, so I've cut his head off. Okay, sometimes you do that because, well, you just do. All right, and I'm going to take and I'm going to scrape off all of this. I don't think I want all that. Come through and scrape, scrape, scrape some more. Okay. So I've decapitated him. Oh, poor babies. Got it. Got head gone. Okay, so I took that. I did take a little bit off. I'm going to take a little bit more off. I'm going to use another tool. Chop it off just a little. I'm going to use my finger. I'm going to put my finger in and I'm going to take off just a smidge. Just a smidge. See if I like that better. I may have to make a whole new video. We'll see. Sometimes that happens. You know, you're just not in love with how it looks. Oh my goodness, that looks so much better already. Okay, that is well worth the chopping of his head off. Okay, so I took off a tiny bit. I probably should have actually looked at it a little bit better before I attached it. See, that's what happens when you don't plan things out properly. Okay, a little bit of water here, a little bit of water here. Reattach my pony head. Maybe he looks more like a bear now. I don't know, whatever. It's all good, right? Okay, so go back. I'm going to reattach his head. Whoops, hold on. All right, I'm going to pause. I'm going to reattach his head. Pause. All right, so I have reattached my horse's head. Okay, I think it looks a little better, a little less like a dinosaur now. Okay, is it perfect yet? Nope, because, well, guess what? I'm not done yet, and it takes time to get perfect. Okay, so what I can do is come through here and start doing stuff like this, indenting to help create a little bit more of an semblance, so I know I can see it a little bit better when I do that. I'm going to come through once it gets leather hard. I'm going to come through and I'm going to add additional stuff too. I'm just checking to see. I think that should work now. Okay, I've added a little bit of a neck, not a neck, but a chin, and because the horse has, you know, it's got its chin and everything. Okay, so I've got that going like that. The goal is it's going to be something similar to this. There we go. Right there. Okay. Close enough for now. Okay. So do I got to decide if I want the head up further or not. So this is step one. I've attached the snout, the head, and the legs. Okay. This has taken me, oh my goodness, it's taken quite a bit of time. Okay. This is going to take you a lot more because realize I paused in between these videos. I've gone through and I've modified things. I've changed things. You know, it's a work in progress, guys. You can't get this done in a day, not even 2 days. It's going to take you a couple of days to make something that's really cool. I will say the head is easier than the horse. Okay. All right. So that's it for today. I've got, you know, the legs attached, the neck, and the snout. Okay. Then I'm done because I need to let it set for a little bit to dry so I can add my other bits and pieces. So that's it for today.